In this video, I'm going to be going over one of the most important ideas and concepts that I've ever learned on my journey for the AI agency, for online business, for anything in life, really. And how you guys can use this to your advantage to get stuff done and get stuff done in the most efficient way possible and move the needle as much as you humanly can and get the most output possible. So this idea is the evolution of the agency, and this comes from Cameron England himself. So Cameron England, I talk about him a lot. He's very, very good on the information side for the agency, and one idea behind it on some of his videos was the evolution of the agency. Now, what does this mean? This basically means, and he's referring to an agency here, but this can refer to anything. Basically, the evolution of your agency as you progress, it's going to look something like this. And I just made like a little chart here. I was going to put on my whiteboard, but I couldn't really do it. So if you guys can see this. So we start with a problem here. So this problem, it can be, let's say for the agency specifically, let's say you're just starting out. It can be getting a company name, right? Once you solve that problem of getting a company name, because that is a problem, right? You don't have a company name. Once you solve this problem, right? Once you solve this problem of getting a company name, your solution, which is whatever company name you provide, it's going to get rid of that problem. But then you have another problem sprout out of that is going to be more complex. Now, I'm trying to explain this the best way I possibly can. But when you solve your problem of getting a company name, so you solve getting a brand for your business, now what issue are you going to have, right? At the end of the day, if your end goal is to make money with the agency, once you solve the problem of getting a company name, now you got to maybe solve the problem of branding all of your messages and emails. That's going to be a problem that sprouts off of that, right? Now that you have that solved, you can then solve the next problem, the more complex problem. Now, once you solve that, right? Once you solve branding all of your emails, all of your messages, this solution, right? This solved your first problem. It's going to go onto this problem of branding all of your messages and emails. And then from here, you're going to lead to this solution, right? Say you change all your messaging and your emailing on your CRM, let's say go high level. And then from here, it's going to sprout onto another problem, right? It's going to be another complex problem. Now that you have your messaging on your messages and your emails down, now maybe it's getting them down for your ICP, getting them down for your target audience, right? Let's say you're targeting home service. What home service people respond to is going to be a little bit different than, let's say, online coaches, right? Just the idea like estimates, jobs, that wording is then going to have to be changed from here. After you solve, so great, you start up here, you got your company name, you solve that problem is no more. Now you got to change all your messaging and your emailing for your branding. You solve that, it's going to get rid of that problem. And then from there, you got to change it up for your ICP. And then as soon as you solve that, right, with that solution, that problem is now going to be done. Then you're going to have another problem sprout off of that. And it's going to go all the way up. And from a very high level overview, I can give you an example of this. So first thing, be setting up your CRM. As soon as your CRM is set up, you're going to have to apply for A2P. So you can send text messages, so you can send emails. As soon as your A2P is down, now you got to create your funnel. As soon as your funnel's down, now you got to create your pre-call. As soon as your pre-call is down, now you got to, what else do you need to do? Now you got to create a qualification survey. As soon as your qualification survey is done, now you got to create ads. As soon as your ads are done, now you got to run ads on Facebook. And now you might have to look over the data. Now that you are looking over the data, now you have to make changes appropriate with the data. The idea behind this, and this is the evolution of the agency, you have to solve the problem right in front of you, the problem that you can't solve your other problems without. This is moving the domino. This book right here, The One Thing, it talks about that. The One Thing. You guys can see it. It talks about that, right? The idea of getting stuff done, you have to attack the one domino. You have to attack the biggest domino that's going to lead to a domino effect. Now, for this instance, is a little bit different from that, but the idea still remains fundamentally the same. You have to solve the first thing first in order to move the needle further back. I'll give you an example of this. So many people I see, and I was a victim of this. This is something that comes from experience. And you have to want it bad enough because then you'll know, okay, like I'm done dilly-daddling. But this comes from experience. For me, myself, when I first started this, I tried to get a grasp on fulfillment. Now, at the end of the day, if I don't have any clients, if I'm not even, advertising for clients, what good is it going to do me if I don't, or if I'm good at fulfillment? At the end of the day, it arguably might even have worse client results because you're doing this and you're not in any sort of active recall with it, right? You're not actually doing it. So you have this solved, but then you got to go away from it and you got to work on so many other things in the evolution of the agency that by the time you finally get to onboarding your first client, you have completely forgotten everything you've learned. And now you have to start from scratch, right? And you are in the same position you would have been if you just would have focused on the correct things first. And so that is the idea of the evolution of the agency. You have to attack the thing, the domino, that is most important to you right now. What domino is it that you have to solve to achieve your end goal? And then from there, once that domino falls down, you're going to have a bigger domino to solve, right? Your problems that you solve, they're going to continuously be more complex, more complex, more complex, all the way up to, let's say you're making $100K a month. Maybe it's a legal issue. Maybe it's a team issue. Maybe it's another branding issue. But those are arguably way more complex, way more harder to solve than getting a company name. But there's still problems, right? There's still dominoes that you have to knock down. So TLDR, right? The summary behind this, the evolution of the agency. For you yourself, when you're running your agency, you're going to have to solve a problem. And then once you solve that, it's going to be a more complex problem. Once you solve that, it's going to be a more complex problem all the way until you reach your end goal, right? And then it's still continuous iteration from there. But that is the idea. So very, very, very important. And I'll make videos and I'll go over on the best things to prioritize first. But, rule of thumb, what do you need to solve first in order to get to your end goal? Let's just say very vague end goal is making money. What do you need to solve to get to that? And you have to solve step 1, then step 2, then step 3. You don't go step 1, then learn fulfillment, and then go back to step 2. No, you can do that. But at the end of the day, you are not going to get the most output possible. And that is where the most output is possibly achieved. Attack the first thing first, and then from there, right, you're going to have more complex issues that come along, but you just solve it in order. And that is the secret behind big output, especially for the AI agency, right? It's going to be your biggest friend. So think of that concept whenever you're doing it. You can ask me questions too on what you think is best. Now, I'm going to have like an outline and a structure on what you should start on. I already made a video on this, that vague outline that I made like 2 or 3 months ago. That is something that you can follow, but I'll talk about it more in depth. But idea behind that, right? Solve the first domino, then the other ones will come. So that is the idea behind the video. Hope you guys got value out of that, and I'll see you in the next one.